Happy to start. As it relates to post-MBA, so folks coming in as a VP or a principal in private equity, from a background perspective, having investment banking experience is really critical. And to be a VP or principal within private equity, typically you've also have kind of 2 to 3 years of private equity experience pre-MBA. And the reason is, the roles and responsibilities of a VP and principal are pretty significant. And it's one where the baseline, what I would consider baseline kind of skills and capabilities around managing or working with an associate on the financial modeling, you just have to having some experience in terms of thinking through appropriate valuation and capital structure. You've got to have some of that background kind of out of the gate, because in many ways, the VP or principal is the lead on a new opportunity. And so they're the ones that are driving diligence sessions, working through identifying kind of critical areas of focus for us as we contemplate a potential new investment. And so, there's absolutely mentorship and development starting from there, but having a baseline in terms of modeling, valuation, capital structure, and also having a certain level of EQ. We're in a people business, and so we spend a lot of time meeting with folks. It's been awkward. We've been meeting new management teams over Zoom the last 3 months, but you have to be someone also who can build a relationship with folks who are typically more senior and older than you.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think for the kind of post-MBA level, the things that I know that we think are really important is, one, being able to execute a transaction from start to finish almost completely on your own. Maybe you need to lean on a partner for some of the more finer legal points, but really being able, kind of the execution part of the job, it really falls squarely on you. And I think it's really important to have that, but also I think that's kind of table stakes for such a competitive field that a lot of people are trying to get into. And I think what could elevate you are bring interesting investment ideas to the table, kind of where to find value, where you'd put your own money. And then I think some early signs of an ability to be able to source deals. I don't think you're expected to be sourcing all your own deals as a VP or principal, but I think it's early signs, kind of the EQ or the gut instincts of how you would approach kind of building that skill set.
I guess I'll jump in there and just, from my perspective as someone who's going in as a VP in the not too distant future, this is something I thought a lot about. I think, there are obviously parts of some transactions that I'm not going to fully know start to finish, but I think what I've realized is resourcefulness is key. So being able to draw on the resources around you, whether that's your, network of friends that are doing the same thing, whether that's, the advisors that you work with, the investment banks, the lawyers, all those different types of people. And I think being able to weave that all together in a proactive way, where you're not kind of going and consistently asking, your partner those questions, but rather drawing on other resources. That's something that I've heard is extremely helpful as you make the transition. And I guess I'll take the associate side of the question a little bit, because that's something I thought a lot about as I start to become a VP. And I think what I'm looking for is somebody who takes initiative, so like can do the analytical components of the job without a lot of guidance from me. So it's really gets the model up and running, does a lot of on that analytical level, and then starts to take it one step further, which is critical thinking on the actual investment itself. So all the mechanics down, but also thinking like, is this a good investment? Why are we pursuing this? Flagging the key items and asking the right questions about making judgment calls and knowing when to elevate those things and when not to. So that's how I think about sort of the role of a good associate.
Yeah, and I'll just go, Tim.
Sorry. Well, I was just going to make a point on at Huron, the associates are the ones who are working through the NDA, negotiating the NDA, and then getting the SIM, or the presentation materials for folks who aren't familiar with term SIM, and they're the ones that are logging it, and they're giving their initial views on highlights, key risks or considerations, and whether or not we should spend incremental time. So they're on the front line, tip of the spear on new deals that do come in. obviously we then review and go through. But yeah, I mean, the associate's a critical aspect of deal review for sure.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I would just add maybe three or four things from my mind as a criteria for that question. But I think one thing I look for, and I've seen people kind of be successful here, is good judgment, right? So we all make like hundreds of micro decisions like every single day, whether it's NDAs or how do you approach negotiations on a transaction. Is this worth an investment, spending time on, et cetera? So like, are they able to make those judgments, is kind of Kelsey's points, without a lot of hand-holding and guidance? So that's one thing. And the other thing I would say is just what made them excel in their backgrounds, right? You don't necessarily need to come from this particular like background, although it might help to have more transaction experience, et cetera. But what about you made you become, get a promotion here or this, that? And so I think that track record of success is like really important, I think, for any sort of person at that level coming in at that VP principal level.